can stop recording. We'll just get Jamie to record. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hello? Hey, Masha, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, let me try something.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. We are just getting set up and we need one more panelist to join us before we get started. Thank you so much for your patience.
Okay. Hey, Rachel, yeah.
You can hear me okay, Lee?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes, yes. Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You guys hear me? It's Margaret.
Yeah, we can hear
Yes.
you.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi, I'm just trying to get the uploaded background. I saved it, but I don't see it when I go to choose background. Do you know how to do that?
You look good as is.
Yep.
Yeah, you
Works
look
just
good.
great.
Don't worry about it. You look fine.
Okay, good. I'll leave it that way. Thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry, I had a late client. I'm here.
Thank you so much for coming today, Margaret. And hi, Henry. I can see you too. Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us. Amazing. Okay. So we will get started. And I just wanted to say again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I know how busy we all are. So I really appreciate you all taking the time to join us today. So I wanted to start with a land acknowledgement and to say I come with respect for this land that I'm on today and for the people who have and do still reside here. I also acknowledge that we have attendees from all over Canada here today. So I also state my respect and acknowledgement of the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the First Nations peoples throughout all our provinces and territories. Okay, so to start, just to give you an idea of the format of this event, we are going to begin with some introductions to the panelists and the event organizers, then review our learning objectives, go through some Q&As and how to, for example, ask a question during the event. Then we'll wrap up with some contact details and acknowledgements. And yeah, this event was a stray thought that got started in conversation with a few speech pathologists and audiologists around the question of how we can better support our colleagues to feel confident as clinical educators. And I wanted to say I'm so grateful for all the help and support that Lee and I have received from Cheryl and from the SAS faculty and staff to bring this all to fruition. It truly takes a village. So I hope that today is beneficial for everyone here. Okay. All right, so to make some introductions, I'm going to ask each panelist to introduce themselves. We'll get started with Tracy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Singh. I'm a speech pathologist working right now in the Burnaby School District. I'm excited to be here.
Hello, I'm Margaret Orm. I'm an audiologist working in private practice, going on 27 years, and I have a student right now. It's exciting to share with you all.
Hi everyone, I'm Becca Yu. I'm a speech language pathologist. I currently have my own private practice, with small practice. There's 5 of us, and I've also worked and managed a large practice as well. So I've taken students now in both settings and looking forward to talking with everyone about it.
Hi, I'm Henry Lamb. I'm an audiologist. I'm currently in private practice. I've been working in audiology for a good 18 years or so now, I guess. And I've taken a lot of students over the years, which is why I'm here. So thank you.
Hey, hello, everybody. This is Lee speaking. I'm an audiologist, currently working at Vancouver General Hospital. I'm also the clinical faculty representative for audiology. Looking forward to hearing from everyone.
Sure.
Thanks, Lee. All right, I'm Rachel. I am the SAS clinical faculty representative for speech pathology. I am a speech language pathologist. I currently work in public and private practice. I work at BC Cancer, and then I also do a little private work in addition to that. Yeah, that's me.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cheryl. I'm one of the clinical coordinators on our team at UBC, the School of Audiology and Speech Sciences. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out today We have right now 111 participants, and this is just wonderful to have such amazing support from our dedicated clinical community like yourselves. So I'm really looking forward to this event today.
So next up, so now that you know us a little better, we wanted to get to know who's attending this event today. So Cheryl is going to pull up a poll and we'll see what the responses tell us.
Yeah, so there's 2 quick questions. I'm going to launch it. Hopefully it works. Can you see it, Rachel? Okay.
I can see it, yes.
Yes. I just want to see who all is here today. Oh. Did both questions launch at the same time? Yeah, okay. All right. So we have, as anticipated, we have about 83% SLPs here today and 4 audiologists, 4 team leads. Sorry. Oh, and 18% audiologists, 82% SLPs, and 4% team leads or managers. Welcome. Thank you all for coming.
Amazing. And it looks like we're at about an even split on prior supervision of students.
Wonderful.
That's awesome. It's great to see folks here who haven't taken a student yet. Welcome.
Thank you for participating.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm just gonna share. And there we go. So, learning objectives. So here's what we're hoping to do today. There are 3 main objectives. The first one is to try and do some community building so everyone can get to know each other better. I know it's been a really strange past few years in terms of the pandemic, and it's really changed how a lot of us work. And, you know, I think it's nice to be able to connect and make use of some of the technology that's popped up over the pandemic and do this via Zoom. The other objectives, so we have capacity and confidence building. So we want to try and help CEs to feel really positive about taking students, or potential CEs to feel good about it. And then network building. So getting to know your clinical educator community better and knowing where you can access support as a clinical educator. Right, so a little bit of a how-to. So what we anticipate is when you have a question for the panelists, please use the raise hand function on Zoom to ask a question. If you're not certain how, please type into the chat box and we can walk you through it. Panelists are going to answer questions as they arise, so it will be sort of a first come, first served basis. And we do ask that if you could introduce yourself and state your profession and where you work before asking your question to help us get to know you. If your question hasn't been answered and the event is coming to a close, type it into the chat box and we will aim to follow up afterwards with some written responses that are also going to go up on the Community of Practice website. Okay, so we're going to come to the first question that we are going to ask our first 2 panelists. The question is, what was your biggest worry when you started as a clinical educator? And do you still have that worry now? And this is going to go first to Tracy Singh.
I think my biggest worry was that I wouldn't have all the answers. And after 20 years of being an SLP, I still don't have the answers. So it's okay. You're never going to know everything. And having a student helps your practice. You're going to have to look things up. And I don't worry about it now because I've accepted the fact that I don't know everything.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Tracy. Okay, next we're going to Margaret.
My biggest worry continues to challenge me every day anyways in my profession, and that is time management. When you're already busy and you're asked to take a student, you think, oh, I don't know how I already take my lunches to work quite often. So what I have learned is that it's always challenging. It doesn't matter if I have a student. I was late today. And when I know I'm going to have a student, I do my best to look forward through that time frame and prep my calendar. But having a student actually teaches me new tricks. So I can learn new ways of cutting corners because we have to, and have learned to be more flexible in ways of getting things done. So it's harder, yes, but also I learn a lot from the student. They actually ask me and challenge me, why do you do it that way? Especially if they'd been somewhere else. I was at another clinic, we didn't have to do all this, and I can reflect and think, well, am I doing something I don't really need to according to the college or for this client? So it's a learning experience, and I think time management will always be challenging. I like to chat.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Okay, good stuff. So what we're going to do next is open the floor to questions from all of you. Please do ask away, use the raise hand function and introduce yourself with your question. I might make use of the therapeutic silence. We have a question. Excellent. Paige, yes, please ask away.
Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, perfect, because my headphones don't have a microphone. Okay, so kind of building off of that. So this will be my first time taking the student, and my colleagues who are PTs and OTs have had students in the past. And yeah, I guess some of their feedback has been time management with students. Like, should I be allotting time? So I have a very busy schedule. I'm the only SLP. Oh, I guess I should have said that. So I am the SLP at the Kitimat CDC, so way up north. So yeah, I see all the kids, and so I have a pretty busy schedule. Should I be kind of opening up my schedule more to allow for feedback and conversation, and yeah, kind of all that.
That's a really good question. I'm going to put it to Becca.
I think it works differently for everyone. I know for me, I think Margaret was on, I like to chat as well. And so finding those times and then setting up expectations with the students. So every student's going to be a little bit different. Right now in my practice, I either do virtual therapy or I travel to families' homes. And so I usually tell the students now that we're going to have a lot of our discussion in the car in between clients. So, you know, I'm driving, they may have their list of questions. We will talk about it during that time as we're in between clients. And then we'll also try to set aside either a little time in the beginning or end of day. So we'll kind of set up those times. As a student gets more independent, depending on where they are in their placements, then you can also kind of give them like small projects, because when a student is sitting with you, a lot of times you feel like you have to talk with them too. But you have other work to do, you know, emails, paperwork, lots of things to do. So you're going to have to kind of manage your time a little bit differently, and maybe set aside, especially in the beginning, a little bit of extra time, and then adjust as you get to know your student and their learning style and everything.
Thanks so much, Becca. Does anybody else have any words of wisdom?
I do. It's Margaret. I raised my hand just to be, you know, proper. Two things I may not have mentioned, but I definitely build in the time. I try to expand my appointments at the beginning, put in review, small meetings, and then near the end, we can go a bit quicker. But the other thing that I work for Connect Hearing, and we have a team of mentors, learning and experienced. So I think even if you work in a solo clinic, you can find a mentor, somebody else, not just the student to bounce your ideas off of, but other people that have mentored. The, what are they called? The clinical coordinators at UBC might have ideas. But I really find our group useful, even though some of them are brand new. We work as a team and I learn lots from them, how they manage time.
That's a great idea, Margaret. So using your team. Awesome. Okay. All right. Anybody else for the raise hand function? Let's hear your lovely voices. I see one from Stephanie Pascoe. Excellent. Go ahead, Steph.
Hello, I was just going to make a comment, Paige, because I also work at the CDC, and so I know I work in the Fraser Valley. I've taken a couple students before, but it's a similar format as what you work in. What I found is, as everybody has said, I like to chat. When they're with me, I tend to chat with them, just like I would with a colleague, kind of thinking out loud. And I felt it helpful for myself, but probably not so helpful for the student because I'm overloading them with the stuff that I could have just kind of sorted through in my head or had a conversation with my colleague. What I found I actually did though was, like I think Margaret said, I scheduled fewer kids than I typically do, which feels at first you're like, I'm not doing the things I need to do, but for my own mental health and my own sanity and making sure I can feel comfortable giving them the support they needed, I would book fewer kids than I typically do. If I do 4, I would typically do like 2. And then when they have those special projects or those things, they're like going to write notes, I would do the other things. And I always schedule time. I'm sharing a student this time. So I would schedule time on the times I don't have my student to review the stuff that I need to go over with them, do my paperwork, do the things for the other days, but I definitely scheduled more time. And if possible, if you're feeling like on a day you need more support and just time at your desk, I would find that if I had a client who was seen by OTPT that was on my caseload, I would see if they would be able to follow along with the team to see if they can see how we're using our strategies in that, and then they can come back and kind of report back. And so it's almost more of a learning opportunity where you get a bit of a breathing room. So if you can use your team that way, and if they count towards hours, because they can still be practicing your skills, then that might be a way to also give you a little bit of time to breathe and like eat or something.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, Stephanie. That's a really great response. I'm seeing a few more questions pop up in the chat box. So just to say, we'd love to hear your voices. We're right at the start, so we've got lots of time. So please do raise your hand and ask the question for us.
Rachel, I'm just going to answer Megan's questions.
Sure.
I will pop some information into the chat box for everyone about the externship schedules for audiology and for speech pathology. And the hours is 350 is the minimum hours that the students need, SLP students or audiology students, 350 minimum hours.
That's a total. That's not just for you, Megan.
Program.
Lee, I see you've got the raise hand function on.
Yes, and I'd like to share some experience at HH. And first, let me lower the hand. Yes, and so we found time management is very challenging, and because at HH, like other clinics, like everybody's clinic is quite challenging for new graduates, for students. And however, we found there's towards the end of the practicum, most students, they are able to work independently. And actually it's a free clinician's time because you don't need to spend the whole hour with the patient. We rely on the student clinician to do the job. We just review the results. So it's balanced out in the end. So at the very beginning of the practicum, it looks like a time consuming, and but towards the end, clinicians can get some free time to do their own work or the paperwork. So all the practice time, I would strongly recommend the clinicians don't really worry about, even you have a limited time appointment, but actually maybe the first few weeks challenging, but after that you can rely on the student clinicians, and most of them, they are able to work independently, and you got extra time to do other things. So this is just our experience.
Thanks, Lee. Becca, did you have a comment there?
Sorry, I'm gonna manage all the little buttons on the bottom there. So I was gonna answer Megan's question about being in private practice and worrying about not having enough hours. Is that okay? Yeah, so I usually only schedule about 10 to 15 hours of direct client time for myself a week because I have 4 other SLPs that work with me that I'm helping support, mentor, supervise, and I also do all the intake and administrative work because I don't have an administrator right now. And then I have 2 children. So I schedule kind of minimally. I've talked to programs before. What I'll usually do is find out which practicum. So the earlier ones, usually you can kind of get away with fewer hours a little bit because you're kind of getting a taste of it, where the later practicums, obviously near the end of the program, it's a little more crucial that they hit their minimum number of hours. But the other thing that I've done with other colleagues is reach out and either share a student, or if we notice, I've been either the receiving end or the asking, where it's like, I have a student, I don't, it's not coming up to the hours that we kind of need. Does anyone have another day that they can shadow and watch? So I've worked with colleagues across clinics like that before, obviously speaking with the program, making sure that it's all set up properly. And then now within my own team, they're starting to take on, wanting to take on students. And so we're talking about taking on students as pairs, so that if we have cancellations or anything like that, that we're sharing that responsibility and also that caseload, so that students have some more opportunities. And it's nice for them to hear from more than one supervisor too, because they get different perspectives.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Becca. All right, Karen, I see your raised hand.
Thank you very much. I will try and lower my hand and talk at the same time, always a challenge. So yeah, hi everyone, I'm Karen. I am an SLP working at Children's Hospital in Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. And as you can probably tell from my accent, I didn't grow up here, so I didn't train here either. So I trained in the UK, and I was wondering whether I see there's the clinical educator handbook, which I imagine would be very useful when it comes to supporting students who are training in Canada. But I was wondering whether there were any other resources or supports that UBC has to offer potential clinical educators when it comes to the curriculum that the students who are training here would be working with. Thanks.
That's a great question. I'm going to pass to Cheryl and or Marsha.
Thanks, Karen. That's a great question. We have our clinical educator community of practice. So I put the links already in the chat box. But I would start there. It has a wonderful wealth of knowledge and skills and information. So our clinical educator handbook is there for audiology and for speech language pathology. We've created some online professional development modules. There's 6 up there already. They're free. They're meant for you to do it as a self-study, but they do count towards CEEs. And then there's also an orientation video, which is it's about 45 minutes to 60 minutes to complete. It gives really great information about the clinical education program at SAS. And then once you complete that program, I guess the orientation video, you will receive a certificate of completion from Jamie, our program assistant. And I can also send everyone some information after, just sort of directing you to different pages in our clinical educator handbook about the courses that a first-year student versus a second-year student would have. But everything is outlined in our clinical educator handbook. Thanks, Karen.
Okay, I see Henry has his hand raised. Go for it.
So another resource we've had in the past is we've had interprofessional kind of workshops for educators. They were used to be in person at Children's Hospital in the auditorium there. And it was actually a good chance to meet with SLPs, audiologists, and other professionals. And there'd be a topic for the whole day, a whole day workshop and everything. So that used to happen once a year. Obviously with pandemic, that's not been really possible in the same way. But I know they've done that in the past. So I would imagine that probably it's going to pick up again sometime in the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Henry. And Tracy.
Yeah, just to add to what Becca and Henry said, if you're not familiar with the UBC coursework, I find it handy to have a partner. So I know when I started, then you can kind of use your colleague to watch the videos together, read the handbook together, take a student together. And the other comments about someone's worry about the hours, I took a student when I think I was only working 3 days a week. So I was like, well, I can take a student, but I only work this day and this day. I leave early and come late. Is that okay? And UBC was great. And then they paired me up with another SLP. So I wasn't responsible for having that student the whole time, and it was okay. They worked around my schedule, and I told them what I could offer. Like, I don't work full time, so I can't take a student full time, and that's okay. And getting to know having a student with a colleague was kind of nice.
Thanks so much, Tracy. Okay, has anybody else got any questions or thoughts for us before I move to our next panelist question? All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. So question number 2, this is, what is one piece of advice you would share with potential or relatively new clinical educators who think they're not ready to supervise students? And I'm going to send the first to Becca Yu.
I'm gonna say that, like most things in life, you're never really going to be ready. If you're going to try to get yourself ready, you could be waiting a very long time. And I think a lot of us who've been practicing for a while know that we just don't have all the answers. As Tracy said, you just kind of learn as you go. And I actually learn a lot from the students during the practicum. And so if you have interest being a practicum supervisor, reach out to UBC, and they offer lots of support. So whether you do it in a pair with somebody or you just show interest and you want to in ways get yourself ready or get your caseload ready and stuff, that to start that conversation now because you're here, and then maybe it's going to take a couple of years, because I think my first student, it took me 1 or 2 years after a conversation to like agree to take a student, just to make sure that I felt ready. But even then there was things to work out while I was the supervisor to figure out, and every practicum is a little bit different and every student is different. So I don't know if you're, sorry to say, but ever truly ready to supervise. It's a learning experience.
You're so right, Becca. It's a learning experience, and students help you to learn as well. That's the biggest thing I think I got from my first student. Yeah, excellent. Okay, and Henry.
Yeah, I think if you're worried about having to explain things to the students, I think that's one worry. Again, it's been said already, but you don't have to know everything. You just have to know where to find the answers, or if you're in a team especially, then you can really lean on your other team members to help you out. Because I worked in a big team for many years, and it was great to bounce ideas off of each other. I think the other thing to keep in mind is if you're able to explain things to your patients and you feel comfortable with that because you've gotten to that point in your career, you should be able to do it also to students. So it's just a little bit extra on top, but really if you're able to communicate it to the patients, you can use the same kind of explanations to the students, and then they also have all that theoretical and academic background. They actually can put the pieces together, and it's kind of fun to go, oh yeah, we've learned about this, and you see them connecting the dots as well. So it's rewarding in that respect as well.
Thanks so much, Henry. I also have found that it can be a relief for some students to have their clinical educator say, you know what, I'm not sure. Let's look it up together. I think it takes away that pressure that some students sort of have almost internally to know all the answers. And when they see that the reality of clinical practice is that it's a learning experience, even for people who are working in the profession, then that can be a confidence boost. All right, I see Marcia has her hand up.
Yes, so my name's Marcia. I'm on the same team as Cheryl. I took students for many, many years as a novice clinician, and then as a really grizzled old clinician. They really benefit from you walking alongside them, and there's no expectation that you are the sage on the stage. That isn't real, and that doesn't model the right thing, because when you're the sage, they think, you know, how could I ever be that competent and intuitive? And none of us started that way. We all learned in a natural way. So I would really encourage you to think about walking alongside someone instead of being the fountain of everything. It's not real. What you model as a clinician, as a learning professional, is so powerful for students, and it really, really important. They see that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Marcia. Okay, so I'm going to open the floor again for any additional comments, questions, thoughts. Now is your time. All right, go ahead, Margaret.
I don't know if it fits here as well. In terms of the things that piece of advice, it's also what I've learned myself. So with adult amplification, that's my practice. We always are practicing patient-centered care. And in recent years, people are extremely more involved with what hearing aids they're going to choose, and they want to know diagnostically what's wrong with their hearing as compared to when I started over 25 years ago. So the more I do a really thorough needs assessment, motivational interview with the patient, you're really doing the same thing with your student when they start. They're just an extremely bright client. They have a lot more background. So I always start at the beginning, finding out what they need, what they're coming in with, where they want to end up, what are their goals. Much like you would ask a client what their hearing goals are and pick the right product, you're going to ask your student what their goals are and plan their 6 weeks with them and follow through and follow up and change and adapt. So it's all really the same. They're just a super smart client.
That's an awesome answer, Margaret. Thank you so much. All right, Lee.
Yes, I absolutely agree with the Margaret approach, like a patient-centered approach. And like everyone else said, is a two-way learning. We learn from students as well. So one advice for relatively new CEs, I would say, my personal experience, I would consider students as a friends or a coworker. So respect them, and because their experience in different clinics or their latest research knowledge from schools also teach us. So that would is similar to Margaret's approach. Treat a student as a smart client, and so we don't really consider is that they are students, more like a coworkers, or I consider them as a coworker or future friends. So in the field. So this is one of the advice, my personal experience to new CEs.
I like that, Lee. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, I see we have a raised hand from Rachel. Another Rachel. Go ahead.
So I'm taking a student for the first time this summer, but I have taken several hearing instrument practitioner students in the past. I'm wondering if any of the other audiologists have also taken HIP students and can comment on the differences between HIP students and audiology students.
I'll just actually raise my hand. I've done both as well. And the audiology students from UBC come in at a much higher level, and there's way less variability. So typically I've had audiology students ask me on day one, do I need to observe? And that goes for my first year one this year. I don't know if you guys have changed the program, but they're ready. They have some practice. They know some things. Whereas the variability with the HIP students I've had or new hires for the company have come from elsewhere. It's a much wider variability in skills, and getting them sort of up to speed on how we expect things to be done is more of a challenge. So yeah, your UBC audiology people, they come in so strong, and it's a much easier placement.
Thanks so much, Margaret. Okay, opening the floor again. Has anybody got any thoughts, questions, or comments?
I'll follow up on Margaret there because I have limited experience with HIP students, but I've had one, and they usually have very short placements as the one I had. Like they were just leading up to like a very small requirement, and they definitely didn't have the same knowledge base as the audiology students. So certain things I'd have to explain a little bit more. So it is definitely a very different experience. I find the UBC with the 6 weeks is a good way to lay the foundation, and especially once they get into the later placements, they're really up to snuff almost already to be a clinician. Just need to instill that bit of confidence with them. But with the HIPs, it again, like Margaret said, there's a lot of variability.
Thanks so much, Henry. I'm seeing some more comments in the chat, and I'm going to encourage you all again. We'd love to hear your voices. Okay, perfect. I see a question from Deb. Go ahead, Deb.
Okay, sorry, just trying to get my screen back up here where I can see you all. So it's not a question so much as a comment for people who are newer. I've had students for probably, I don't know, 28 years. I've taken on so many, I think I've lost count, but my new role that I've had for the past 10 years is primarily augmentative alternative communication. And I think that it's really helpful for students to see that I don't actually know everything about AAC. And, you know, every single time we go in to see a student, pretty much there's something different that's happening. It could be that there's different training that needs to be provided at the school. You're doing lots of on the fly, quickly thinking, you know, what can I do in this situation? Technology is breaking down. And I think it's really good for them to see that I don't have the answers and that I reach out to other professionals and I look things up. I Google the heck out of things. I look things up on websites like Saltillo and Toby Donavox. I phone vendors. So I think, you know, if you are uncertain about taking a student because you don't feel like you have all of the information, you know, I've been doing this for many years, and as somebody else had mentioned as well, who might be a similar vintage to me, that we don't have all the answers. And it's just really, really important for students to just learn how to find information. And that's one of the best things that we can do for them, is just show them where to look. And then the other thing that I have always done with my students is I've said, you know, as they're doing their therapy planning, you know, you can try any activity, you can, you know, that relates to the goal. You can bring ideas forward, but you need to have a theoretical reason why. You need to be able to support it with the why. So that's where I'm encouraging them to you know, try things out. But if you're coming to me to try something out, then you have to have that information to back it up. And I think that also helps me learn too, because they might be learning new things and there might be some exciting information that I don't know about. So those are my comments.
Thank you so much, Deb. That's really excellent. It's so lovely to have such experienced CEs here with us, and we really appreciate your extra insight and comments. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, I see a Tammy raised her hand. Go ahead, Tammy.
Hi, all. Yeah, I'm going to jump on the AAC piece too, because that's my role here in the Langley School District. I've actually been, since I've been in this province, I've had a variety of students, many from UBC, but also from other universities too. So I've had about 20, I think, since I've started here. And the benefit I see is in building the relationship with school-based teams and also with the tier 3 or the extra level of specialists. So the OTs and PTs and vision and also the integration teachers. So what happens is that they get a chance to really see what that relationship looks like when you are a school-based speech language pathologist, and the expectations of not only who you work with and not the kiddos you get a chance to work with, and they get lots of chance to do that. We have a great student with us right now. She's doing fabulous. And but they also have an idea of how it works with extra support and how to ask for it. So they don't go in thinking they need to answer all the questions themselves. They realize there are other professionals out there that they can be reaching out to. So I find that's been a fantastic way, and they walk out of here with some great skills. I still get emails from them and visuals sent to me and such, just to say, hey, we know what AAC looks like. So I'll pass it on to the next person. I think it's Leah.
Thanks so much, Tammy. Yes,
You're
it's
welcome.
Leah. Go ahead, Leah.
All right. Can you hear me okay? So I work, I'm an audiologist. I work at a private clinic, and Margaret, hi, she was my first clinical educator like 10 years ago. So it's nice to see some familiar faces. I've taken on students before, but in partnership with somebody, and I wasn't like a lead educator. I was kind of just supporting when the main person was unavailable. And I'm just trying to remember, or maybe it says it somewhere, I just haven't come across it. If the students have an opportunity to give feedback to the clinical educator about like maybe how they could have learned differently, or if they felt they could have been supported better. I just don't recall doing that, and I just wondered if that was part of it.
Really good question. I'm going to direct to Cheryl and Marcia.
Yes, I'm just trying to find the clinical educator feedback forms. It is also on our clinical educator community of practice, but I'll pop them up in the chat, the direct link. So over the past couple of years, this is sort of a new process for our students. They are highly encouraged to fill out the feedback to clinical educators form at the midterm and at the final. These forms are not for the school. We don't see them, the ACE team do not see them. It's for your personal records as a clinical educator, just for you. So when I took students, I know that I kept these for my own records, sort of for my own teaching records, but I also gave them to my manager to let my manager know, like, hey, I took 2 students this past year, or I've taken 5 students overall over the past 4 years. So students have been trained and have been told about these forms. It is, of course, up to the clinical educators if you would like to have this type of feedback at the midterm and at the final, but we really envision it being like when the clinical educator fills out or completes the midterm evaluation for the student, we also envision it to be a reciprocal process. So the student has their own clinical educator feedback form and goes over it with the clinical educator at the midterm in sort of like a collaborative conversation. So I'll pop those in the chat for everyone as well. And Marcia, you might want to follow up with something that I've said.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it really well, Cheryl. I just want to describe the dynamic with the students. They are ever so anxious about approaching you to ask if you would like it done. And there's nothing scary on either the midterm or the final. They're just not used to doing it in what is a somewhat of a power imbalance. So if you are interested in receiving it, please reach out to your student, say, I understand it is you have this, would like to avail myself of this. And yeah, it should just be at the same time. It's like trading papers at midterm and final. And it just makes it more reciprocal and mutual because you would like to know how it's going too. And during the placement, it's also a really good vehicle for doing that. We do accept your documents when you apply for promotion in your rank from a clinical instructor to clinical assistant professor and beyond. They are proof of excellence in teaching because the fact that you have it is already demonstration that you are vested in teaching students. So thank you.
Thanks, Marcia. Margaret, was your comment to add to this former question? Excellent. Okay, go ahead.
Just that through the years, I've become much better at checking in more regularly. And I think a lot of it was because they did have this form. And I don't like to wait till midterm because you can ask them in your busy day if there's anything you'd like to do differently. How's it going? How are you? How's the time? How's the pace? But they're kind of afraid to tell you. So I probe deeper now that paper has come up and more often before midterm. It really helps me do a better job and keeps them less stressed.
That's a great idea, Margaret. Yes, I have also found myself, oftentimes I like to set up by explicitly asking, what's your learning style? What are your worries about placement? And sometimes I'll share experiences that I had as a student, because I find then if they can remember that I was a student too, and you know, I might have had some similar worries or experiences, then it can help them to open up a little more. Yeah, all right. I see a hand raised with Jen Martin. Hi, Jen, go ahead.
Hello. We kind of moved a little bit on from this, but in terms of the question of, just taking the leap and taking on a student, one of the things I think that was helpful for me a long, long time ago when I started was looking at where they were at in their coursework, and at certain phases of my career, the part-time student worked better for me. So the one where they were 2 days a week and they were also taking coursework. So I think there's different pros and cons to different student placements at different times. Now where I'm at in my career, working full-time again, I find like I have somebody right now, full-time, full-on for the 8 weeks. I wish it was 12 weeks, like we could really dig our teeth in. But if you're thinking of kind of just stepping into it, that might be something to think about, is the part-time placements. The other thing with the sharing a student, I've had great experiences with that, and I've had really challenging experiences with that. Everybody has different even intervention styles, different therapy styles. And there was one point in my career where it just didn't work out well for that student, because our expectations were the same, but our service delivery was so profoundly different that for that student, it was just really challenging. So I think that's another thing to think about if you're thinking about sharing a student, is having that conversation with your colleague about what are your similarities, what are your differences. Students could absolutely benefit from differences. I'm not saying that, but I think that discussion has to happen, not just an automatic, hey, let's share a student. I think there has to be some thought going in. And then my last one is, just remember, when you're taking a student, we all know, I should say, I work in early intervention, birth to 5 at a child development center. So as much as I'm providing consultation parent coaching, the heart of our job in early intervention specifically is working with families and helping them in their process of grieving over whatever is going on for their child and navigating everything. And so students, there's so much of the job that I think as a clinical educator, you focus on, okay, do I know? I mean, there's things that I'm so out of touch with now after 30 years that I'm learning from the student, but the piece of the job that is not the speech therapy part, but is the compassion driven, that's not something you have to worry about teaching. That's something the student will feel. And that just motivates me even more, because it's what we are as clinicians, and the heart of our job as clinicians that has a huge impact on students. So I would just encourage people to not let those fears of the theory and the academic side stop you. If you have a heart for speech pathology, the students will grow from that as well.
Thanks so much, Jen. There's some really great thoughts and comments from you there. Okay, excellent. So any other folks want to add questions, comments, thoughts? All right. Cheryl, what do you think? Will we move on to question 3, or do you want to move forwards? We've got 40 minutes.
No, I think I think we should do question 3. We're having such rich conversations.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't want to cut it short.
Absolutely. Excellent. Okay, so panel question number 3. This question: what is one thing being a clinical educator has taught you so far about student mentorship? And I'm going to go first to Lee.
Hello. Hi. I would say the students, they are Sorry, now we have the video.
So this is your opportunity to answer the panel question, Lee. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. I had some. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Good. The video is on. So, being a clinical educator taught me so far the student mentorship is the student, they are really they are quick learners, and they have extensive knowledges learned from school, and probably as I mentioned before, and we want to learn from the project is don't underestimate students' potential. In the past, we have assigned different projects to students, and they did awesome job. And by the end of their practicum, they will give us a presentation to clinicians at VGH, and we were impressed. So I would say is students, they have a huge potentials, and we need to encourage them to do not only clinical works, but potentially we can assign different projects, and sometimes they can answer our questions. So that is one thing I really like, being a student mentor.
Thanks so much, Lee. Okay, my response to this question, I feel, will repeat a lot of what we've heard already. But one thing I have learned from being a clinical educator is that the learning process is never ending. And oftentimes you will learn just as much from a student as they are learning from you. I've learned that it's okay to not have all the answers straight away. And oftentimes it's about the process of discovering where we can get the information from. That's as important. So yes, it has, it's really taught me that it's not necessary to be perfect. It's not necessary to, know absolutely everything there is to know. And the most important thing you can do for your student is show them that it's a process of learning together. Yeah. All right, so what I'm going to do is open the floor once more for any additional questions, comments, or thoughts that anybody has. Tracy, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that although it is additional work and time management, I find it really fun. And I think all of us entered our field because we love the field. Like, I love being a speech pathologist. And I think having these students, and they're so keen to learn from you and learn at the job and get better. And it's just rewarding to be with your future colleague, teaching them like your tricks of the trade, and they teach you, they ask you questions that make you think about your practice. Like, why do I do this a certain way? Am I stuck? Should I be doing it a new way? And it's so rewarding. I find it a lot of fun, even though it is stressful on time, but it also helps me take better breaks, because I want to give a good example and actually take a lunch break. So sometimes when I have a student, I take longer lunch breaks than if I didn't have a student, to show them that I have a balance. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents for that.
That's awesome. So students help you to remember to have a better work-life balance by example. That's great. Love it. Excellent. Okay. And then I see Karen has her hand raised again. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. All the questions. Yeah, so I appreciate the comments earlier about the fact that we can never truly feel ready for to take this on. But is there a recommendation or requirement about the length of time that one would need to be in a specific role before one took on a student in that role? So I've just been in this role as a SLP in child and adolescent psychiatry for the last 4 months, and should I be sort of a little bit more knowledgeable or fluent in the language of speech pathology with regards to mental health before I took on a student?
It's a really good question that I'm going to direct to Cheryl.
That is a great question, Karen. We will always say, we get these questions a lot from our ACE team. And I've always answered it when you're ready to take a student, you will know. So do you feel confident to take a student? That's the one thing. And then do you feel competent to take a student? So we really leave it up to the clinical educators to make that decision for themselves. In our student handbook, the student clinical education handbook, we do recommend clinical educators have at least 1 year of clinical experience. It doesn't specifically say in what role. So you started your role 4 months ago. It might be a bit too soon for you to feel ready to take on a student, but we always will leave it up to the clinical educators to make that decision. And we understand that, right? We were in that exact same role, you know, when we were doing our clinical work. Some of our clinical coordinators on our team are still doing clinical work. So we recognize that, and we don't take it personally, and we'll ask you the next year if you're ready to take a student. Does that help? Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Karen. Okay, I see a comment from an Emily Jurgens. I'm hoping I'm saying your surname right. Hello.
So I'm Emily. I work at Children's as well. I went to grad school in the States, so things were done a bit differently with the tracks you go on. And so I'm just looking at the hours for the externship 3 that I'll have a student for, and it works up. So they do more, I guess, in the day. Well, so I'm curious how you track students. So if this is a externship 3, will their 1 and 2 be more in the medical pediatric setting, or if they're school-based, how do I kind of work up those hours in the acute rehab setting, maybe with some different, because our scope is can be so broad. Just want to make sure, especially when they get to externship 3 and 4, that they're really meeting hours, I guess, if that makes sense.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll direct that again to Cheryl.
Emily, can I just clarify, SLP or audiology?
SLP.
Okay. I think, is Darlene here? Because I will also have her answer that question for audiology. It might be a bit different. But things have changed, of course, because of COVID. So this year we will have our first year cohort will have an externship 1 and a typical externship 2 and a typical externship 3. So what we try to do is for them to have experience with, let's say, a pediatric placement for externship 1, an adult placement for externship 2, and then a school-based or a school division or a private practice that focuses more on school for externship 3. So it can be in any one of those combinations. So what we usually say, of course, to all clinical educators is don't be so worried about the hours that the students are going to obtain in any of the externships. We also say this to our students because they will obtain the 350 hours that they need through coursework and throughout the remainder of the program for the whole 2 years, because they do have their 4 externships. So what you will find, of course, is that students will have learned, you know, those foundational clinical skills from externship 1 and 2, but will need a little bit more support in externship 3 for your specific setting. And then for externship 4, for SLP students, we try to have them in a placement that they would like to eventually see themselves work at. So some, as we all know, some students want to work in a school district or in a private practice or in a medical adult acute care placement. So we try really hard, the ACE team, to get them what they would prefer for their final placement. It doesn't always happen, but we try really hard. Does that answer your question? Okay, thanks, Emily.
Thanks so much, Emily. All right, Margaret, I see your hand raised.
Sorry, we don't have Darlene here, hey? For her to answer. Okay.
Oh,
so my question.
Hello. Here is Marcia Golba. I am the new clinical coordinator with audiology. So Darlene is not here. I'm here. If I can ask, I've been in this position for a month. So I'm still learning too.
Sorry, Marcia, I didn't see you. I didn't mean to exclude you at all.
Yeah, no,
I
joined at 12:15, so it wasn't in the beginning. Yeah, but I'm not sure what you want to know about audiologists. So the placements, I don't know if there is any question, but the placements are hearing aids, pediatric hospitals, and yeah, so the amount of hours is usually enough in all of those placements, and usually the clientele is more adults or children. I don't know. Any question, Margaret? I'm not sure.
I had my hand up for something else, and then I heard them say that Darlene might want to weigh in.
Okay. Sorry.
But I agree with you from my experience, but I'm not a clinical coordinator.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I thought you were waiting for Darlene. Sorry.
Okay. Did you have anything else to add there, Margaret?
Regarding Tracy's comment about teaching us for our own time management, I realized something very important to add. I have a team of 2 front desk staff people and another audiologist, and having students is great for everybody. It's fun. We go out for lunch. We all do more on our lunches, and it's much more social. And the clients are very happy when they can help a student learn. So the whole ambiance is more positive. So I thought I'd just add that to Tracy mentioning that our day is, we take more time, the quality of our day is better. We take our lunches. So that's all. I just wanted to add that.
It's awesome. Thank you so much, Margaret. Okay, and I see Janice has a hand raised. Go ahead, Janice.
Hi, I'm Janice Bennett. I work in a pediatric setting with Interior Health in Kelowna. And I've taken many students in the past when I was in Toronto, so therefore from U of T. I've never taken a student from UBC. And so I'm curious about what's involved for the CE in terms of evaluation. You mentioned midterm and final, and I have the Clinical Educator Handbook open, and I can see forms that the student uses for self-assessment and reflection and so on, but I don't see forms that the CE would use. So I'm just wondering if you can speak to that.
Yeah, I'll open that up to Cheryl and Marcia.
Definitely. Hi, Janice. It's nice to see you.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Yes, I will. All of the forms that the clinical educators need are on our CE, the virtual community of practice. So I'll put those up in the chat after. And also they should be in our handbook. You might have an old edition maybe of it. But I can email you a more updated one. Also, the most recent updated Clinical Educator Handbook is on our virtual community of practice. So I can make sure that you have all the resources that you need as clinical educators.
That would be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm conscious that we did have a number of people who were here for an hour, I think, and I'm so conscious of everyone's time. So I am going to move us along and say, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Just to let you know that we've been keeping track of any additional questions in the chat, and anything that's gone unanswered so far, we are planning to review and post some extra responses there on the Clinical Educator Community of Practice website. In terms of attendance, you will receive some CEEs. A certificate of attendance will go out via email. And then a feedback questionnaire is also going to be emailed. Thank you so much in advance for completing this. And we really welcome any feedback you have in terms of planning future events to support you all as CEs. Also, please do stick around because there are some door prizes to thank you for attending. So I'm going to hand over now to Jamie.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to virtually meet many of you. I've been emailing everybody for quite some time, so it's nice to see faces. I get the honor of being the one who took down everybody's name and then drew 5 random names to win $25 gift cards. So if it's okay, I'll read off the names, and then We will be in touch with you to make all the arrangements. Okay, so the winners are, drum roll. The winners are, we have Annie Wang is our first winner.
Yay!
Yeah. And our second winner is Chelsea Saley. And then our third winner is Kim Walker. Our fourth winner is Monica Nelson. And our fifth winner of these $25 gift cards is Sarah Mermuse. So we will be in touch with all of you shortly to make all the arrangements, but congratulations.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thanks for being able to organize that for us. Yeah, and just to also notify everybody that Cheryl has posted the link to the feedback survey in the chat box. So take note of it there as well. It can be a handy one to fill out straight away. Okay, so in terms then of if you'd like to get in touch with any of us now that you've met us and you know our faces, so the clinical faculty representatives, we are available to speak to anybody if you have questions, thoughts, or concerns relating to clinical education. We essentially act as the bridge between the real world of clinical practice and the SAS academic committee. So our emails are there. And we will also be sending on this information following on. Then for questions relating to academics, these are your wonderful people to get in touch with. So we have Marsha, Sandy Taylor, and Cheryl, and then also Yvonne. She is currently on maternity leave until February 2023. Okay, and then for the audiology team, academic bent, my apologies, the previous is the speech pathology team. This is the audiology team. We have Darlene Hicks up until August 2022, and then Sasha Brown, who was returning in September 2022, and Marsha Goldberg. Finally, I just want to say a huge thank you. It really takes a community, it takes a village to put together events like this. What started as a small idea really took a lot of preparation, and I have so many folks to thank. So thanks to Jamie, the SAS Senior Clinical Program Assistant. She was fantastic, and this couldn't have happened without you, Jamie. Thank you to Valerie, the Executive Assistant, Clint Myers, Manager of Admin, all the members of the ACE team. Thank you so much. And all SAS faculty and staff for their support in bringing this to fruition. We really appreciate it. I wanted to say a special thank you too to Cheryl for turning my scrambled thoughts into organized ideas and helping to make this a reality. So thank you so much, Cheryl. All right, and that is us for today. So thank you so much for coming. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful to collaborate and work with everyone. We will definitely have events like this in the future. Bye, everyone.
Cheryl, did you want to hang out and do a debrief afterwards?
Yeah, for sure.